I found my wife cheating on me with her lawyer, secretly transferring $200, $0 into his account to hide our property. But now he's suing us for ownership of the house, and I don't know how to fight back. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to catch his wife cheating, especially not in the way I did. It was one of those days where everything felt normal, but I had this gnawing feeling that something was off. Lisa, my wife, had been acting weird for weeks, dodging my calls, coming home late, and brushing off any questions I asked about her day. She was always bitchy when I pressed her, snapping at me for no reason and telling me I was paranoid. But I knew her too well. I knew when she was hiding something. It all came to a head one evening when I decided to do some digging. I'd been suspicious about her recent behavior, the late nights, the secretive texts, her suddenly deleting her browsing history. I started going through her phone when she was in the shower, and what I found made my stomach drop. There were messages from a lawyer named David, and they weren't just about legal stuff. No, they were flirtatious, full of innuendo and downright inappropriate. I saw her promise to meet him tonight, and her saying she couldn't wait to see him. I also found bank statements, which was even more shocking. She had secretly transferred $200, $0 into his account. It wasn't just a mistake or some random gift. It was a calculated move to hide our property, to probably cheat me out of what's ours. I was stunned. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. How long had this been going on? Who was this David guy? Was she planning to leave me? I felt betrayed on every level. I mean, I knew Lisa could be bitchy as hell, but this was next level. She lied about everything, said she loved me, said she was working late, said she was stressed. And all the while, she was sneaking around, transferring money and making plans with her lawyer to screw me out of our house. I decided I couldn't confront her right away. I needed evidence, a solid case. I started digging further, looking into her bank accounts, her emails, and her phone logs. I found out that she'd been funneling money into David's account over the past few months, small amounts at first, then suddenly a huge transfer of $200, $0. That's when I realized she was trying to hide something big. My mind was spinning. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this after all these years? I was furious, hurt, and honestly a little lost. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't just sit back and let her get away with this. I had to fight back. I wasn't going to let her take everything we built, especially not without a fight. I started planning my next moves, calling a lawyer, gathering more evidence, and figuring out how to turn her own game against her. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew I had to act fast. I didn't trust her anymore, and I definitely didn't trust David. That's when the real mess started. Because what I uncovered next was even worse. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was trying to cheat me out of our house, our life, everything. And now, David was suing us for ownership of the house, claiming some kind of legal right to it, which was the last thing I expected. I couldn't believe how deep this betrayal went. It was like everything I thought was real was falling apart, and I had no idea how to fight it. I was angry, hurt, but more than anything, I was determined to get to the bottom of it and to make her pay for what she'd done. After I found out about the transfer and the affair, I was in shock for days. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept replaying everything in my head. Her lies, her sneaking around, the money she was funneling to David. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see this coming. Honestly, I felt like a fool. I had trusted her for years, and now I was staring at this mess, realizing she'd been planning this behind my back for who knows how long. The worst part was that she kept lying to my face whenever I confronted her. Lisa was good at it, so good that I started questioning my own memory. She'd look me in the eye and tell me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that she loved me and only me. But I had proof now. Her messages, the bank statements, the transfer, everything pointed to her betrayal. I felt betrayed not just by her but by the whole damn world. How could someone I loved so much turn around and do this to me? I decided I had to confront her face to face, even if I knew it wouldn't be easy. One night I called her into the living room and I laid everything out on the table. I showed her the messages, the bank transfers, the emails where she promised to meet David. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She started crying, saying she was stressed, that she was overwhelmed with work, that David was just a friend, and that I was overreacting. She looked me straight in the eyes and lied as if she thought I was stupid enough to believe it. She told me she never cheated, that the money was a loan or some kind of investment, and that I was just being paranoid. But I wasn't buying it. I saw her for what she was, another lying, manipulative bitch who thought she could get away with everything. I was furious. I couldn't believe I'd been blind for so long. All I felt was this burning rage that I had to do something. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me, especially not after I found out she'd been secretly transferring hundreds of thousands of dollars. That kind of betrayal, it cut deep. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But I kept my cool, knowing that the only way to win was to be smart and strategic. Over the next few days, I started planning my revenge. I hired a lawyer to help me understand what rights I still had and what I could do to fight back. I also began gathering more evidence, screenshots of her messages, copies of bank statements, even her email correspondence with David. I wanted to make sure I had everything I needed if this turned into a legal battle, because I knew she was planning something, and I had to be ready. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, pretending everything was fine, acting like she was the innocent wife being unfairly accused. But I saw through her. Her bitchy attitude, the way she snapped at me. Over small things, the constant denial, they all confirmed she was trying to cover her tracks. She kept lying about her whereabouts, about her relationship with David, and about the money. Every time I pressed her, she threw a tantrum or accused me of being crazy. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me anymore. That's when I learned about the lawsuit David had filed against us, claiming ownership of our house. It was like a punch to the gut. I never expected someone like David to try to take what's ours, especially after all the lies she told me. I knew I had to act fast. I contacted my lawyer and started preparing for what was going to be a long, ugly fight. I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my dignity, my sanity, and whatever was left of my trust in her. All I could think about now was how betrayed I felt, how angry I was at being played for a fool. But I also knew I had to stay calm, to stay focused. Because if I didn't, Lisa and David would walk all over me and I'd lose everything. My house, my marriage, my life. As I knew it, the next steps were clear. Fight legally, expose her lies, and figure out exactly what her true intentions were. But I knew this was just the beginning. The real storm was coming. Once I realized the extent of her betrayal, I knew I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I had to act fast, so I started digging even deeper. I hired a private investigator to track Lisa's movements and her communications with David. I wanted to see if there was more to her story, maybe some secret meetings, hidden accounts, anything that could help me understand just how far she'd gone. The investigator came back with some shocking details. Lisa had been meeting David in hotels, sometimes late at night, sometimes in the middle of the day. She was more active than I thought, and her excuses about stress and work seemed even more hollow now. Meanwhile, I was poring over legal documents. The house, which we'd bought together, was in our names, but David was claiming some kind of legal right to it, saying he had contributed money or that he had some ownership stake because of the transfer of funds. That's when I learned about the lawsuit he filed. I couldn't believe it. This lawyer who was supposed to be helping her was now trying to take my house. It was surreal. I'd never been involved in anything like this, and I felt completely out of my depth. I sat down with my lawyer, Mark, and explained everything I knew. Mark was a no-nonsense guy, and he immediately started outlining my options. We filed a countersuit to challenge David's claim, emphasizing that the transfer of money was illegal, part of a scheme to hide assets and cheat me out of my rightful property. I told Mark I wanted to fight for my house, my marriage, and my dignity. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Lisa's lies had created a web of deceit, and I needed to unravel it all. I also started collecting evidence of her infidelity, screenshots of her messages with David, her secret emails, even recordings of her phone calls, which I had to be careful about legally. I wanted everything documented. I was furious that she had kept this hidden all this time, that she'd manipulated me into thinking everything was fine. I felt like a complete idiot for trusting her, for believing she loved me. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. If I was going down, I was going to do it on my own terms, with the truth laid bare. As the legal battle heated up, Lisa's attitude shifted. She became bitchier, more aggressive, and more defensive. She started accusing me of being paranoid and controlling. She told her friends I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I knew the truth, and I was determined to prove it. I also started to see her true character: selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything we had for her own gain. Then out of nowhere she threw a curveball. She accused me of abuse, said I was controlling, that I was trying to keep her from her true happiness with David. That was the last straw. I was furious. I knew it was a lie, an attempt to turn things around and make me look like the bad guy. I had enough evidence to prove she was lying, but it was clear she was desperate. Her bitchy attitude, her manipulative tactics, they all pointed to someone willing to do anything to save herself. The most intense moment came when I found her packing her bags, trying to leave. She told me she was done, that she was going to start over with David, that she didn't want to be married to someone who didn't trust her. I was shattered but also angry. I blocked her from leaving, told her she wasn't going anywhere until we sorted this out legally. I could feel my heart pounding. This was it. The culmination of everything: the lies, the betrayal, the money, the house, was all coming to a head. In that moment, I realized I had to stay strong. I had to fight for what was mine. I couldn't let her take everything I'd ever worked for, especially not after discovering she'd been lying and cheating all along. I knew this was going to be a long, brutal fight, but I was ready. I wasn't going down without a fight. And as I watched her storm out of the house, I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and resolve. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not without a battle. The days that followed were a whirlwind. After she stormed out, I stayed up all night, staring at the walls, trying to process what had just happened. It was like my entire world had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. I knew I had to stay calm and focused, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her bitchy smirk, her tears, her lies. I felt betrayed in a way I never thought possible, not just by her cheating on me, but by the fact that she'd been scheming to take everything I worked for. That thought haunted me. She was trying to cheat me out of our house, our life, everything. I contacted my lawyer again. Mark advised me to start preparing for the worst: possible court battles, depositions, and the fight over the house. He warned me that David was aggressive, and now that he'd filed the lawsuit claiming ownership, I'd need to be even more strategic. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace all the transfers and transactions. It turned out Lisa had been funneling money into David's account for months, small amounts at first, then that huge $200, $0 transfer. It was clear she was trying to hide her trail, but I wanted to catch her in every lie. Meanwhile, I started gathering everything I could: emails, texts, bank statements, recordings. I wanted to build a solid case to prove she was manipulating the situation, that she'd been planning this from the start. I found deleted messages she thought she had erased, and I screenshot everything. Seeing her messages with David, I couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and disgust. She told me she loved me, that she was just stressed, that her affair with David was innocent. But it was all bullshit. She was lying, scheming, and trying to steal our house. I also discovered she had been making arrangements to get rid of me, even talking about a divorce that would leave me with nothing. That was the moment I realized I had to fight, not just for the house, but for my dignity. I couldn't let her destroy everything we'd built. I decided I'd fight her in court, challenge her claims, and expose her lies. I knew she was good at lying, but I was better at digging up the truth. That's what I focused on: getting everything documented, everything solid, so I could take her down legally. Her attitude only got bitchier as the days went on. She'd call me names, accuse me of being controlling, and say I was jealous of her happiness with David. She even told her friends I was abusive, which was a complete lie. I had enough evidence to counter her claims, but I knew she was desperate. I could see the panic in her eyes, the way she tried to manipulate everyone around her. It was clear she thought she could get away with everything, but I was determined to stop her. One night she called me, trying to guilt-trip me into backing off. She said she was tired of fighting, that she just wanted to start fresh somewhere else without me. She cried, told me she was done with the lies, and begged me to let her go. I was furious but also hurt. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me again, to make me feel guilty so I'd back down. I told her she wasn't going anywhere until this was settled legally. That was the truth. I wasn't going to let her run away with my house or my life. The next day, I decided I had to take control. I filed for a legal injunction to prevent her from selling or transferring any more assets. I also demanded an accounting of all her financial dealings. I wanted to know everything, where the money was, who she was talking to, what her plans were. I knew this was just the beginning. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, trusting her all these years. Now I was fighting for everything I had left: my house, my reputation, my sanity. As I sat in the lawyer's office, I realized I had to prepare for a long battle. Lisa was relentless and David was just as manipulative. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I had my evidence, my lawyer, and a newfound resolve. I knew that no matter how bitchy or manipulative she got, I had the truth on my side. I just had to keep pushing, keep fighting, and trust that justice would prevail. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about standing up for myself and making sure she couldn't get away with destroying everything we'd built. The legal battle dragged on, and I quickly realized this wasn't going to be a quick fix. Lisa's bitchiness only intensified, and she started playing the victim even more. She'd call me every day, crying and screaming, telling me I was ruining her life, that I was a controlling asshole who didn't understand her. She accused me of trying to keep her from her rightful happiness with David, twisting everything to make herself look innocent. But I knew better. I had the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, the recordings, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. Meanwhile, David's lawsuit against us was gaining traction. He claimed that the transfer of funds was a legitimate investment, that he had contributed to the house's value, and that he had every right to claim ownership. I was furious. I knew the transfer was illegal. She'd done it to hide assets, to cheat me out of my share. I pushed hard in court, showing how she'd been funneling money into his account secretly. I also brought in the forensic accountant, who proved that the transfer was suspicious and part of a scheme to defraud me. It was clear she had been planning this for a while. Her attitude was bitchy and manipulative, but behind the scenes she was desperate. She tried to turn friends and family against me, telling them I was abusive or jealous, trying to paint me as the bad guy. But I had nothing to hide. I stayed calm, kept gathering evidence, and relied on my lawyer to handle the legal side. I knew this was a fight for my future, my house, my reputation, and my dignity. One of the most shocking moments was when I caught her trying to sell some of our assets without my knowledge. She'd been working with a shady real estate agent, trying to offload some property I didn't even know she was planning to sell. That was the last straw. I immediately filed an emergency injunction to freeze all her accounts and prevent her from transferring anything else. I also demanded a full audit of all her financial dealings. I needed proof she was trying to drain us dry before everything was settled. Throughout all this, Lisa's attitude became even more bitchy and defensive. She'd lash out at me, call me names, and insist she was the victim. She'd say I was paranoid, controlling, and that I didn't trust her, but I knew her too well now, her lies, her manipulations, her schemes. I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I started documenting everything: her calls, her emails, her meetings with David. I wanted to make sure I had a solid case to prove she was trying to cheat me out of our house. The worst part was watching her try to spin everything. She'd cry, scream, act like I was the one ruining her life. She even tried to turn our friends against me, telling everyone I was abusive and jealous. But I didn't care about her lies anymore. I knew the truth, and I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. I stayed focused, kept pushing forward, and trusted that the legal system would see through her manipulations. Then came the day of the court hearing. I was nervous but prepared. I presented all my evidence, proof of her lies, the illegal transfer, her attempts to sell assets. My lawyer did a great job laying out the case. And when the judge listened carefully, it was clear she saw through Lisa's manipulations. The judge issued an order to freeze her assets, declared the transfer of money illegal, and acknowledged that the house belonged to me. It was a huge win, but I knew this wasn't over yet. Lisa was still bitchy and manipulative, and she'd do whatever she could to fight back. Still, I felt a sense of relief. I'd managed to hold onto what was mine, and I'd exposed her lies. I learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust your gut, document everything, and never underestimate how manipulative someone can be when they're desperate. I also realized how much I'd been blinded by love and trust, but now I was stronger. This experience taught me that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even if it means going through hell. And I was ready to see this through to the end, no matter what. In the end, everything played out just as I expected. Lisa's manipulations couldn't hold up against the evidence I had gathered. The court's ruling was clear. The house belonged to me, and her claims were invalid. But even after the legal victory, the emotional scars remained. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The woman I once loved had turned into someone I barely recognized, selfish, deceitful, and willing to ruin everything for her own gain. The betrayal cut deep, but I knew I'd come out stronger on the other side. Living with her gone was a relief in some ways, but also a reminder of how badly I'd been hurt. I learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that little voice that warned me something was wrong. I also realized how important it is to protect yourself, financially, emotionally, legally. I never thought I'd have to fight for my house like this, but I did, and it taught me that sometimes you have to stand up and fight for what's yours, even when it feels overwhelming. Looking back, I see how her bitchiness, lies, and manipulations were all part of a bigger game she was playing. She thought she could get away with everything, cheating, stealing, lying, and I'd just accept it. But I refused to be a victim. I fought hard, played smarter, and made sure she didn't walk away with my life's work. The experience has changed me. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the red flags, and more determined to protect myself and what I value. Most importantly, I've learned that betrayal can come from those you trust the most, but you can survive it. You can come out the other side with your dignity intact if you're willing to fight for it. I've also come to accept that not everyone is worth your trust, and sometimes, love isn't enough to keep a relationship afloat when lies and greed take over. So, if anyone out there is going through something similar, trust your gut, document everything, and don't be afraid to stand your ground. The truth might hurt, but it's the only way to truly move forward. I don't regret fighting for my house or my sanity. It was a brutal lesson, but one I'll carry with me forever. And now, I can finally start rebuilding my life, knowing I faced the storm and came out stronger.